Welcome back, everyone, to another Kaiserreich country overview. This time, it's not even a country. It's Deutsch Ostasien. You can play as this, but it's not a country. It is kind of a derp collection of colonies with a fleet and some kingdoms. Just add a little bit of salt in there. So essentially, the way it's defined in some way is a fleet with a state, an admiralty, and essentially, it is Germany's way of controlling the East Asian possessions of France and Britain, and also its own. And the colonies that it took over from France and Britain, of course, after France and Britain collapsed, have been kind of copy-pasted into what was already German in East Asia, aka so the German East Indies, a bunch of islands around here. And that just got copy-pasted over what, the British and French owned. So you have British Malaya, you have Sarawak, you have North Borneo, you have French Indochina, you have Guangzhou, which was French, part of French Indochina. And then you have Wei Highway up here, which is what used to be a British treaty port. So yeah, it's a bunch of possessions essentially just kind of crammed together into one entity. Also Hainan Island, taken from China. And yeah, it's very, very complicated. But it's all held under the leadership of Helmut von Mucke, who is the Admiral of the East Asian Fleet. You can see this glorious fleet right over here. So you start with a very, very massive fleet as German East Asia, who could have fought. And you are essentially Germany's navy in the East. Although you can do some interesting things with this country now. Your navy is, of course, very, very strong, although you don't really have a lot of dockyards. Yeah, 9 dockyards. Of course, you do have Singapore, and that is your capital. And you can expand your own economy, but economically you are mostly reliant on Germany. And politically, too, you start off as a autonomous puppet. And that's actually the most... the biggest drawback to German East Asia, to be honest, because it is actually pretty fun to play, except you can't really do too much on your own when it comes to diplomacy, when it comes to really anything that's gonna bring your game forward, because, well, you cannot do, cannot justify declare, war goals. You cannot release states. You cannot manage the autonomy of subjects, like reduce their autonomy, and you can't even raise your own autonomy, which is kind of derpy. And your main enemy is going to be Japan. So quickly, let's go over the focus stream. There's like a pretty tiny armed force type of focus tree where you're essentially dealing with your land armies. Now, the problem with your land armies is that you have the colonial question modifier, which decreases your recruitable population by 85%. That's because, of course, you are a colony, and they've decided to essentially put all these as core states, except just give you this terrible modifier. So that's just kind of simulating the fact that these people don't really want to serve you. And yeah, with the Ostasian force branch, you're going to be essentially getting free weapons from Germany to actually equip your army, and then have the option of either just using Germans, and of course that doesn't mean many people. In fact, it decreases that 80% modifier to 90% reduction. But it gives you a lot of bonuses in return. So actually, this is, I think, the more fun to use, because you become a very, very elite kind of force. And along with some other ways that you have of receiving units that I'll show, you can have a sort of army composed of a lot of special forces, a few garrison units, and then a few mainline, very, very strong infantry units, which is pretty fun to play with, actually. And then you can request the Prussian Guards from Berlin and the military police regiments. The military police actually are cavalry divisions, and the Prussian Guards are just infantry with full veterancy and artillery. So very effective. And of course, this is for quality, this is for quantity. The use the locals branch is essentially you recruit and train locals to be more up to German standards instead of, just completely ignoring them. And that does give you some modifiers, but you can reduce those. So at the end, you only have like a -5% to most of your things. The problem is you're still not going to really have all that much quantity because your recruitable pop factor is still going to be at around 50%, I think. Yeah, you increase it by 45% and you start off with 85. So yes, you do go down to 40%, minus 40% recruitable population factor, but that's still pretty nasty because your states are not that populated. Well, I mean, some of them are, especially in Indochina, but yeah, you're still going to have a very big sort of very big issue in getting actual recruits for your army. And so that's one of the reasons why I don't really like this branch as much. The other reason I don't really like this branch as much is because native garrisons and formal rights for service are the ones that actually give you free units, and you only get militia and garrisons with this. So not really as effective as the cavalry and the infantry that you get from the German branch. There's even a tiny Air Force tree that gives you some military factories, which is great, and also gives you some free fighters from Berlin. Fokker D-21, I think that's like supposed to be interwar. I think that's supposed to be interwar fighters. Oh, really now? Well, okay. I guess we have to see what Fokker D blah blah blahs are. Okay, it's actually okay. So it's actually the equivalent of the BF-109. Tag GEA. That's actually pretty good. You got a fighter 36, 200 of them for free, and you actually get some free naval bombers later. Arado AR-195, I believe that is the one. Yep, most likely. And naval bombers are very important because, of course, you are a fleet. Then there's the Grand Fleet, which we're going to leave for last. And then there is the administration line. So essentially, because you are kind of a motley Frankenstein of a bunch of different things, you're going to have to reform. And the reform is kind of spurred on by the conflicts in Indochina, because Indochina's got a big instability problem. You, of course, know that Indochina does revolt away, or rather the southwest of Indochina does revolt away under the leadership of the Viet Minh. But, you know, this kind of spurs reform for the rest. That, along with Black Monday, of course. So you're going to try to either increase the role of local rulership, self-rule, or have fiscal austerity. So the right one is kind of like what the colonial powers did after the end of World War II. They tried to essentially strengthen the protectorate system and increase the share of local rulership in these colonies to keep control, whereas the left one is just trying to keep control. And it does give you some good benefits, like civilian factories. However, the right side does have an extra thing that you can do, which I'll show later, because essentially you're trying to increase your ties to local, local leaderships, and that actually gives you Vietnam as a puppet if you take some correct choices during the Indochinese crisis. Because essentially the way French Indochina worked is that like it was technically a bunch of independent state under the protection of France, right? So there was Vietnam, which was Tonkin, this part over here, and Annam, which is this thing over here, and that was under the leadership of the Vietnamese emperors. Then there was Laos, and there was Cambodia, and then there was Cochinchina down here, which was the only part that was technically a French colony. And that was all like kind of crammed together into French Indochina. And German East Asia is kind of the same thing, except with a lot more things going with it. For example, British Malaya, of course, all of those things. So you can choose to give more autonomy to Bao Dai, who is the Emperor of Vietnam, and release Vietnam. And he's going to have control over Annam and Dong Bak and Tonkin. Dongbak probably just means northeast. Educated guess, not sure. But yeah, this is Tonkin and this is Annam, and they become part of the new independent Vietnam. Unfortunately, as I said, since you are a subject of Germany, you cannot manage subjects, you cannot release territories. And so you can't really go all the way with it and actually create an independent Laos and an independent Cambodia under your sort of hegemony, which is kind of annoying because it would be fun. And funnily enough, you don't actually give this part to Vietnam. Like Cochinchina and the Mekong Delta, after you defeat the revolt, in the Chinese revolt, they actually turn back into your control. Because you cannot manage occupied territories because you're a subject, you can't give them to the new independent Vietnam or semi-protectorate Vietnam. And, you know, you can't do that, and they just become your cores again. So, yeah. So you kind of get to screw over the Vietnamese as well. But it is kind of useful to release them. Anyway, in the end of all of that, you do get new Admiralty, which just kind of changes around a few things with your government. It's the only way you can actually do some changes with your government. It's not like Mittelafrika, where you have a lot of options there. You're either, as you start, paternal autocrat, the Helmut clique, or you are the authoritarian Helmut clique, which is, if you go down the left, you are the authoritarian one. If you go down the right, you stay this way, essentially a fleet with a state, and you even get a nice modifier that increases your dockyard output. Actually, I'm just going to show you the event. If we go to this one, I'm going to show you the event, and so I can actually show you Vietnam as well. Yeah, so after reassessing the status of the Admiralty, we have decided that German East Asia is, above all, a branch of the Kaiserliche Marine. We will focus on the naval construction and leave the administration to the natives. So you get this fleet backed by colonies, and you fill up your cabinet with people who are essentially the same people as before. So as you can see, you've taken all of this. And then after that, you get the branch down here, which is a very, very powerful, actually, branch, because you get some very, very free infrastructure, civilian factories, steel, research bonuses, consumer goods factories reduction, infantry weapons research, fortifications, military factories, research slots, stability and war support, land doctrine, ground bombing targeting, and even an increase to your field hospitals. And from this one, there's an event that you actually get some either some land doctrine bonuses out of this or something else. I don't remember exactly. So this branch down here to the sort of bottom right is very, very powerful, and it doesn't really take that long to finish. So do take it. It does actually give your economy quite a bit of juice. So as you can see, you get this independent Vietnam over here, who are your puppet. You unfortunately can't do anything with this guy except just kind of take his divisions. So you can see right now how it has been going. I have all these, well, you get these 4 units for free after you release them, and it's in the middle of the whole problem with Indochina. So like during the Indochina War, you actually get these 4 units to help you out. That's never bad, although the Indochina War is actually relatively easy. So it's just kind of derp militia. But afterwards, they do build relatively decent divisions. They usually build 7.2s. You can actually lend-lease them some stuff if you want. And they'll build okay divisions. So you can see that this is the Helmut clique. They're just the same. And yeah, Black Monday. Oh yeah, also, it would be... Do I have a save while the Indochina War is going on so that you can see some of the options that you have? Because, of course, the Indochina stuff is done very well. Very, very well. And, oh, Bao Dai. Okay, I can actually show you the events for Bao Dai as well, then. So there's just a few events that you need to take the correct choices if you want the Bao Dai solution to happen. So, of course, right off the start, you get this Bao Dai solution, and you're going to need to take We Need His Help. And so you get these. In the meantime, you can see that this is when the Indochina War is happening, and yeah, you have this whole like mechanic with the Viet Cong suppression. And you can see he spawns with 4 divisions, request his forces, and then you get to fight. One thing that I would like to show. One thing that I would like to show is, well, never mind. That would take way too long. That would take way too long. So you go down the last sort of path. It is the fleet one. Of course, it's the biggest one because you're a fleet. And yeah, essentially, the main one is you're going to be deciding your doctrine. The main purpose of German East Asia is to protect the security of Germany's interest in Asia, right? And at this point, the main threat to that is Japan, the rising sun. Of course, because they're, you know, getting bigger, stronger. They want more pretensions over territories in East Asia. They want their own colonial empire. And the obvious target is Germany, because Germany is the hegemon over here. Except they're very, very distracted, so it's a free target. Well, with Germany East Asia, you need to prepare for this, because Japan's going to come after you, and you can have 3 main doctrines for the Navy. One of them is the trade interdiction, another one is base strike, another one is fleeing being. And these actually turn down to some construction focuses where you're going to get some free ships. Although, I'm not sure if this is because it's bugged or because I didn't wait enough. But when I went down this line, it did not give me any ships. But I probably just did not wait long enough for the event to actually fire and give me the ships. So with the fleeing being, you get destroyers and battleships. With Command of the Sea, you get with Command of the Sea, you get light cruisers, modern destroyers, and colonial battlecruisers. So you can actually get this one as well as this one. Huh, not bad. And yeah, 2 battlecruisers, not bad. Battlecruisers are actually pretty useful. And then the Aviation School. It says you are deviating from the orthodox doctrine of the Kaiserliche Marine. This might bring you trouble. Now, this is great, all of that, blah, blah, blah. It decreases your political power. But I haven't actually seen it really actually bring you trouble, so I don't know. I'm not sure if it's just a text for flavor or whatever. This one goes down to a carrier conversion from a battlecruiser to a carrier, and this one is light cruisers, so not bad. And then expand naval facilities is going to give you a whole crapload of dockyards, so 6 dockyards in Singapore. Although, well, one of them is a random state. In this case, it is Singapore. New shipbuilding methods increases the light ship production. Then you have the absolute defense sphere, which is very, very strong. Division defense on core territory. Anti-invasion plan for some military factories and fortifications. More fortifications. The Singapore detachment, which is a elite marine division. Always welcome. Jungle warfare increases everything for jungle. And what else? What else? Yeah, that's pretty much it. So if we go to another save that I have, do I need to show you? You can see that I'm not happy about some things. Oh yeah, I guess I can show you the Mittelafrika one. There's also random events all over. One that I really find interesting that I didn't even know existed is, well, there is an event, of course, for Burma that turns them syndicalist, right? And they choose the syndicalist option almost every time if they're the AI. However, you can actually do some things to prevent this. There's social unrest in Burma. You can send the fleet to show your support. And when I actually did this when I was playing, it kept Burma as a patronal or, you know, a monarchy or whatever. So it prevented the syndicalist revolution. I wonder if it's going to do the same this time. It looks like it will. Good for you, Burma. Good for you. yeah, so you can actually have the option of interfering in the affairs of a few neighboring countries. Unfortunately, you cannot interfere in the Siamese Civil War, and that's kind of sad. IMO, you cannot interfere in the Philippine affairs either, which is kind of sad as well. Also, you can, for some reason, when the Ottomans are losing, you're going to get an event to send them weapons, which is kind of derpy. And you can interfere in Mittelafrika, a few things. You have relationships there. So there are a few events all over. And yeah, if we go down to the last... Okay, so I'll show you just how a game of East Asia can progress, just to show you what I think is, well, a very, very good playstyle to have with this country. What I think it is suited for. So as you can see right now, it's 1939, and Germany is having problems with the Commune of France and the Japanese. And at this point, what ends up happening is, what I've done is, of course, these are the police cavalry that you can see. Then you can get a lot of free divisions from all over. So you can get those Marines, you can even get these paratroopers, which are from a decision. Yeah, you get your Marines, you get all of that. And what I've done is I've decided to use the army experience that you get right at the start for fighting the Indochinese to make really, really big divisions from the start. You can see that. And that also uses the German weapons that you get. And when sort of the East Asia co-prosperity sphere tried to encircle me, it was pretty easy to destroy Siam this way. So this way you actually deal with a lot of the issues that you have at the start because you don't own all of this stuff. It is actually, you know, relatively difficult because your eastern Indochina part is separated from your Malaya part. And so communications is, well, difficult, all of that. And so what you do is you fight the Japanese and the East Indies and then try to protect, you know, Aoji. And then, unfortunately, because you just don't have enough manpower, you're just kind of sitting there waiting for Germany to, well, try to win. And that's kind of my biggest gripe. Again, with Germany East Asia, you're very reliant on Germany. Another bad thing is, let's see if I do have a save for this one. Yeah, Germany dies. There's a bit of an issue, because if Germany dies, you automatically die. And that's, well, a bit of a, well, it's a bit of a bummer because, you know, for example, right now, you'll see what happens, right? So, for example, right now, I'm doing very well. Like, as you can see, my territory has expanded. I have a lot of stuff everywhere, and I'm fighting Japan with some success and some not success. You know, my navy got kind of beat up, but other than that, it's going relatively well. I'm invading the East Indies, I'm crushing Japanese troops, all of that. So you can get this event, the German collapse. That is because Germany just died. For some reason in this game, Germany decided to get declared on by the Belgrade Pact. Not exactly sure how that happened. But it's pretty funny because the Commune of France and the Danubian Federation have taken over Germany. But yeah, the German collapse. With the Germans having collapsed in Europe and fled to Africa, the continuing war here in Deutsch Ostasien has led many of the colonial... Yeah, the Kaiserreich has fallen. Sabaton. Has led many of the colonial officials fleeing for the new capital in Tanganyika. Communications have not yet been restored, and it seems that for the moment we are on our own. We have been abandoned. And then you get the German government in exile sues for peace. The German government, now fled to Africa and in utter disarray, has arranged for a peace with the Empire of Japan. This happens pretty much every time. This will involve a complete annexation, and there seems little hope of continuing the fight on our own, with so many Reich officials already abandoning their offices here in Deutsch Ostasien. Our government is in complete disarray, and without support from the homeland, it seems that there is little that we can do. So despite the fact that I was doing very, very well, and, well, you're just gone. So now, Vietnam is actually independent, so good for them. Good for them, yay. At least one good part of all of this came out. Then Japan owns Cochinchina and Annam. Wow, look at it. This is claimed land and a half. There's 2 Deutsch Ostasien claims in here, Siam, Vietnam, and the Chinese Union. So why not? Siam is restored to a, well, very, very undeservedly great state. Singapore is renamed to Shonan-to and is a Japanese colony, you know, and then just kind of Japan takes over. And that's, well, it's historical, but it's kind of annoying because then actually what's funny is that you get transferred to the German government in exile. So you can play the German government in exile. And it's like, well, all that for nothing. It's very, very sad, to be honest. Aw. So it looks like in this particular game, there's going to be a bit of a Cold War between Germany and... no, not Germany. Austria, the Habsburgs, and the International. But, you know, that's just kind of how it works, you know? Also, by the way, Sternberg. That's just kind of how it works. If you're not dependent on Germany, this would not happen. But because you're dependent on Germany, unfortunately, a bit of a problem is going to be the fact that, well, you're just gonna capitulate if Germany capitulates. Also, wait, where are? Oh, Malta. As always, Malta is a bit of a problem. Also, no, I was just looking at things. So yeah, now you are the German government in exile. Oops. Crush France. I love that. And yeah, that's the end of the game if Germany is incompetent, which, well, they can be a lot of the times. And wait, how the hell did this get renamed to the Dutch East Indies again? You're Japanese. And I like how there's random Chink troops there. So this is basically about it for German East Asia. It's great in some ways, not that great in some others. I wish that it could be a little bit easier to play around with, and that some of the things would make more sense, but hey, that's just kind of how it works. So I want to thank y'all for joining me. Hope that you've enjoyed, hope that you'll check out the country, and I'll see you soon.